Oh, give me a home where the buffalo roam and the deer and the antelope play, where seldom is heard a discouraging word, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
People and animals have shared this planet for a very long time, and humans have always been fascinated by the creatures they coexist with. Today, we collect images of animals because we have cameras and because we enjoy doing it. Photographing animals, of course, has not always been possible, and yet people through the ages have recorded images in whatever way they could, from Paleolithic France to ancient Egypt, from Beatrix Potter to John James Audubon. Here in the southwest United States, we are surrounded by ancient records of animals, pecked into or painted onto rock walls by people some hundreds or even thousands of years ago. Rock images of all kinds are abundant here, so abundant it seems obvious that creating these images was important to those who made them, and had a far different significance from the reasons we take photos. We can't say for sure what this significance was. Terms get tossed around: hunting magic, shamanic journeying, storytelling, clan symbols, and so on, in an attempt to define another culture's symbols to our satisfaction. We know we will never understand the richness and the full meaning of the symbolism, but we enjoy finding the images to record and photograph and appreciate in our own way. The earliest images from the Archaic period are largely abstract ones. Later, more recent ones become recognizable figures of various kinds. Animals are some of the easiest images to identify, of course, even if we can't identify the ritual or symbolic meaning behind them. This is obviously a horse. And since horses only recently appeared on the scene, beginning in the 16th and 17th centuries, we know this petroglyph is not that old. This is a rabbit. Rabbits are ubiquitous, and probably have been for a long time, but we see very few of them recorded in rock art. Why? We could speculate, but we don't really know. We don't know what birds symbolized, but here they are: water birds, quail or chukar, turkeys, macaws brought up from Mexico, owls, clearly distinguishable. We also know the ancient ones had dogs, but are these a record of their canine companions or of coyotes or wolves? Coyotes figure prominently in some native stories, so who knows? We don't. Buffalo have never been common in the Southwest, but further north there are many powerful images of the American bison, whose enormous herds once made the ground shake when they ran. Somehow, we suspect that besides being a source of food, clothing, and utilitarian items, they were a powerful medicine symbol as well. This is a cat. The ancient ones didn't have house cats as far as we know, but they were familiar with mountain lions, a much larger cat, another powerful energy. We recognize them here because of their long tails and round paws. Sometimes we only see hints of animals in the rock art record. Yes, these animals or their spirits passed this way, but their presence was indirect or whispered, leaving only an aura in their passing, and that is how they were recorded. Bears fit into that category largely. We find glyphs of bear prints or bear claws, a mere hint of their passage. Sometimes these are explained as being clan symbols, but it is likely that bears had a much deeper and more powerful spiritual significance as well, no matter how cozy we have made them in our culture. Sometimes the images are indecipherable, at least to our intellect. Southeast Utah, especially around Moab, boasts several petroglyphs of what look like mammoths, which supposedly went extinct before man came to these parts. Theories abound. The glyphs aren't really mammoths. The The glyphs are based on skeletal or fossilized remains, or are a record of shamanic trance animals, and so on. There is no way to know for sure, but there they are. Some animals are even more rare and puzzling and hard to identify, and we are not even going to try. Their place in the rock art record is somewhere beyond our labels and standard archaeological comprehension. Some animal figures are found almost everywhere, probably because of their symbolism, their powerful energy. Sheep, lizards and snakes, deer, antelope, and elk are in this category, though sometimes distinguishing exactly who's who is a challenge, for us anyway. We know this is not a deer, an elk, or a sheep. We know this is not a lizard or a horned toad. But sometimes telling a turtle from a lizard, or a lizard from a horned toad, or from a lizard man with a tail is not so easy for us, though we are sure the distinction was clear to the glyph maker, as was the difference in meaning. Snakes, another powerful energy, usually show up combined in other symbols, or so it seems to us. They appear as spirals and as zigzags, usually, perhaps as a way of making their power more clear, or to indicate something more profound. We see it clearly, but we do not understand the meaning. Deer, elk, sheep, and antelope make up a huge percent of more recent post-archaic rock art. If an animal's shape has no horns, no elongated canine snout, and no round cat paws, is it a female deer or a female elk? If it has a rack of antlers, is it a male deer or a male elk? Maybe you can tell. We sometimes can't. And how do you tell an antelope with horns from a bighorn sheep, also with horns? It's not always clear, except in the Coso Range, where the bighorn sheep had a particular representation with their horns seen from the front. We do know bighorn sheep were a very powerful medicine in rock art, from California all the way through the Great Basin and the Colorado Plateau. Hypothesized to be rain medicine, shamanic assistance, sources of power, or a food source, and perhaps carrying other meanings we're not aware of, they were immortalized everywhere across this wide landscape. Sheep or antelope show up in many moods, square and solid, fluid and moving, singly or in groups, or sometimes in long lines or big herds. We've seen herds of live antelope racing across the land in front of us, so we have a sense of what the glyph makers were trying to capture, on one level at least. One intriguing rock art depiction is that of the antelope trap, a way of driving antelope into an enclosed area for the kill. This particular glyph resides in an area where the trapping may have actually taken place. This is a box canyon. Once driven in, the antelope would have had difficulty escaping. So this glyph may well be illustrating the trap itself. Here we can follow the antelope into the trap and see a figure herding it, possibly towards a hunter or another enclosure. Antelope meat is tasty, so we have been told, and they roam in huge herds, probably far more of them in the days before cows and fences. So on one level, this might just be a record of antelope trapping, killing, and feasting. It takes a large number of people to make this kind of trap work. You need to build brush or rock fences to divert the animals into the trap, and people to herd them in that direction, and hunters waiting for their arrival. Here in Nevada's Great Basin, we can still see remnants of rock wall alignments built to divert and funnel animals into a trap. Brian Hockett, lead archaeologist for the Nevada BLM, has been studying animal traps for 20 years. He thinks it would take more calories to construct and execute a successful trapping than the calories that would have been derived from the meat of the trapped animals. So, antelope feasting may not have been the main reason for the hunt. Hockett thinks large-scale antelope traps and hunts were more about getting families and clans together to provide opportunities for socializing, performing healing rituals, matchmaking and marriage, information exchange, and conflict resolution between clans and families. In fact, This may have been the forerunner of what historically has become known as the Indian powwow. Because of this, we think these glyphs operate on more levels than just a visual reenactment or a memory of a good hunt, with symbolic levels of meaning that we can't begin to penetrate. And then there's this antelope glyph, one that has us scratching our heads, the antelope on wheels. There were no wheels in use in the ancient Southwest. There were no wheels, period, except those that have been found on some ancient Mayan children's toys to the south. In all our glyph wanderings, we have never seen anything on wheels, let alone an antelope. So we can't even guess on this one. Probably these are not even wheels. Antelope would have had a hard time negotiating the sagebrush dressed like this. So many glyphs, so much history, so many rituals and layers of meaning, in so many sites in this desert Southwest. Humans have crossed and recrossed this land for thousands of years, in a dance of their own migrations and interactions with the animals around them. Some of them left a record of their passage etched in stone. We who follow are simply the most recent travelers crossing this land, seeking their traces, adding our own interpretations, creating our own visions, and leaving our own footprints in time.
Da da da